Take your mind into the wonderful world of physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual wellness. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kinetic Hour. Conversations with you and guests. With your host, Kenan Wesley Mason. That's me.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Kinetic Hour. I am your host, Kenan Wesley Mason. Welcome one and welcome all. Whoever's streaming live, which is a simulcast. Once again, we're simulcasting, meaning that I'm on Facebook Live as we speak, and I'm also on Instagram Live. So I welcome everyone that's tuning in as I am broadcasting at a later hour than normal, because obviously there's been quite a bit going on here in America, closer to home here in Los Angeles, where I am, or just south of Los Angeles. Storms, tropical storms, fires in Hawaii, which has become a huge topic. Some people call it a distraction, but nonetheless, it's definitely been a huge topic, as there's been, I believe, over 100 people that have been 100 people that have been accounted for that have passed or perished, if you will, in this fire that happened all of a sudden. And before I forget, be sure to go to my YouTube channels. Once again, my YouTube channels here, The Kinetic Hour. That's on YouTube at The Kinetic Hour, and that's Kinetic, Kennetic. Once again, Kinetic, Kennetic. And also my other YouTube channel, which is Kinetic Fit and Wellness Info. Kinetic Fit and Wellness Info, and you can go on YouTube and just type in Kinetic Fit and Wellness Info at Kinetic Fit. And again, Kinetic, Kennetic. Be sure to go to those two channels, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, leave your comments. There's always a bunch of information that could be useful to each and every one of you to varying degrees. But back to Hawaii first, and then I'll bring it back here because we did have a tropical storm. I'm pretty sure many of you have seen the news, and it's been all over the place. But in Hawaii, there's been many acres that have burned in this fire. But the bigger issue is the relief and who is attempting to give relief, whether it's the president, our administration, FEMA, and then you have people that are considered celebrities or public figures. And two names that have come up in this equation are two people that have homes on the island of Maui, where this fire took place, this inferno. I mean, it literally looked like a disaster movie. That's what the end result has been, a disaster movie. As I clear this here. But Hawaii did look like a disaster. It literally looked like, and if you looked at some of the live shots at the time, there was this big gust of wind, like someone took a huge fan and just started blowing those fires in a very specific direction. and where no one, the communities, varying communities have come forward and said they weren't warned. We didn't hear any emergency sirens. We weren't warned to evacuate until we just happened to see law officers go into the neighborhoods to tell everybody to evacuate, and word just happened to spread. But for many people, that word was too much and too little and too late. So many people, unfortunately, perished in those fires. Now, as far as the relief is concerned, two people have homes in these on this respective island of Maui. One we know, Oprah Winfrey, and the other, Jeff Bezos, and their homes weren't touched in these fires. It appears that their homes are on the other side of the island, where their homes were nowhere in the vicinity of these fires. And so many people are just questioning why Oprah would bring cameras to the relief site where many people are now homeless and just want to have time to themselves and their families. And here comes Oprah with her cameras, wanting to exploit those that are in need of help. And then Jeff Bezos gives, I believe, $100 million or something to that effect, which is great. But now the question is, what's going to happen to all these acres? What's going to happen? Many people have suggested that these parts of Maui were charred on purpose, so many corporations, elite corporations, can come in, purchase the property, build on it, and they make all the money and move all the residents out of those territories, and having them fend for themselves or move into more lower income housing communities. That's been suggested. Not saying that that's what is going to happen, but we know from history that this is typically or usually what happens. 9/11 is a great example. Hurricane Katrina is another example, where corporations come in and purchase the land where people lived once upon a time, to not purchase housing developments, but purchase the land to build retail stores and malls and things of this nature. So I hope everything turns out okay for those that lost their homes. Many people lost everything, literally everything. They have nothing but the clothes that they left their homes with. Not only the adults, but their children as well. So hopefully that some relief will come. We know that President Biden finally got out to the site where all this tragedy occurred just about a week ago, and many people are complaining about that, of what has taken him so long to go and visit these people, and what kind of help is he going to give them. So that remains to be seen. Here in Southern California, where I am, the word was that we are going to have this horrible tropical storm that's going to, or could potentially, have the magnitude of a standard hurricane that you would see in Florida or places in that region. Typically, this part of the nation rarely gets any kind of tropical storm. We have our typical rainstorms, December, January, February, but never at this time of the year. I mean, we're almost at the end of August and we're having not a hurricane, but kind of a tropical storm. We here in Southern California, very few places got hit pretty hard. I know Palm Springs, they're kind of saturated in almost like quicksand, looks like, because of the region that they're in and how the water collects in the sand or the soil, the sand actually. Because Palm Springs being a desert, Palm Springs once upon a time was ocean land. So their experience is going to be a little different, not necessarily floods, but inches and inches of mud and sand, saturated sand, and they have to they have to get around through that. When it comes to here in more metropolitan Los Angeles, the storm didn't hit as hard as predicted. So things are pretty much back to normal. Very few places had, maybe a tree fall in one of the neighborhoods. That has happened, but nothing major as predicted with the mayor and the governor. But a good thing that they did put out the warning at least. The thing is, people bought crates and crates full of water and flashlights and all these things, like we were back in the pandemic days when people were in the rain, in line in the pouring rain, waiting to get in to buy their paper towels and toilet tissue. It was that kind of scenario in many places here in Southern California, only for it to pretty much be just like your typical rainstorm in January, February, or March. So people just have an abundance of water now and paper towels, while others have zero water and zero paper towels because so many people were in fear of what they heard on the news and started buying up everything like Armageddon was about to occur. So we're back to normal summer weather as the summer is winding down and we're going to be going into fall within the next few weeks. So for everybody that's out in the desert area, hopefully they come out okay as well, because they got pretty saturated in mud. I mean, they're literally walking in at least a foot, 6 inches to a foot of mud piles. So hopefully they'll come out okay with that. The biggest news, obviously. Well, another thing I want to talk about is there's this, I guess some people are talking about presidential candidate. I don't know if he'll be a presidential candidate by the time tonight is over, but conservative talk show host Larry Elder, he was on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne, the God, and DJ Envy, and I don't know what the female, I should have got her name. I guess they had a female guest host on as well, and but Larry Elder was the guest, and I guess they got into. I saw the whole interview. I mean, it appears that it was pretty much a setup that they made up. They, meaning the hosts, made up their mind that they already knew who Larry Elder was and was determined to make him be what the word is about Larry Elder, that he's more, quote, whitewashed than he is being a Black person or a Black male here in America, making every attempt possible to help his people prosper. And So Charlemagne asked him a few questions, and one being whether he has ever heard of his quote nigga wake up call. And Larry Elder said, no, never heard of that. So Charlemagne explained it to him. Larry Elder really had to tell Charlemagne, the God, about why he's questioning Larry Elder about how Black he is or how Black he may not be. And Larry Elder had to tell him, as a Black person, you allowed President Joe Biden, before he became president, to tell you that you're not Black if you don't vote for him. Or on the other side, the other notion is that you're not Black if you do vote for Donald Trump. So it's like a double-edged sword. You damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't, if you have a skin tone like mine. If you vote for Joe, if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you're not Black. That's what Joe Biden told Charlemagne and his audience. If you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. That's what he said on his show. And Larry Elder said you should have looked at that as an insult. Who is Joe Biden to tell you how you supposed to think and how you supposed to vote? And that he's insulting your culture by telling you you're not Black if you don't vote for him as a Caucasian person. Ay, ay, ay. Charlemagne the God. And then the female co-host just kept interrupting him. She became annoying after a while. Again, I think this was the call of possibly the producers of the show telling the host to try to trip up Larry Elder at every cut and corner. I mean, these are all Black men that should have been having what Larry Elder was trying to do, have an intelligent conversation among three Black men so we can learn something from each other. But all they wanted to do, the hosts, were try to convince their audience of, again, how whitewashed Larry Elder is. Like he caters only to his Caucasian audience. Like he has no sense of his Blackness, if you will. And I'm not the biggest fan of Larry Elder. I've known about Larry Elder for years. I used to listen to him on the radio. I mean, he's been around forever. I mean, and he's always been on the conservative side. And he explained why on the Breakfast Club. He explained why he's conservative, because he was taught by his father certain values and character traits that all of us should have, but especially him, being a Black man in America, growing up in the 60s and 70s. And he has some life experience under his belt. And he's on the show trying to tell Charlemagne and DJ Envy and give them some wisdom. People may disagree, but nonetheless, trying to have an intelligent conversation amongst three Black men and a Black woman as well, who actually became annoying after a while. I don't know her name. I'll try to get her name because she was annoying. And kind of condescending at the same time. When again, this is a Black man on a show that is hosted by Black people, Black men. And you can respectfully disagree, which actually Larry Elder said a whole lot of stuff that I did agree with. But again, when you have hosts that have made up their mind that they're going to keep Larry Elder in that space of what Larry Elder said, that he's been called the Black face of white supremacy. That's what he said he's been called. The Black face of white supremacy. Yeah. This is what politics brings out in people. And he's on trying to just have an intelligent conversation. And they did the best that they can to steer it in a different direction to create conflict. But Larry Elder handled himself pretty well. And again, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but because we pretty much live in what Ralph Nader called this two-party dictatorship, the people that are allowed on these more mainstream platforms are Republicans and Democrats. I mean, if you want to get an independent opinion about how politics should be ran, then you'll have to go to YouTube and other more independent outlets, because many independents or people that are in parties outside of Republican or Democrat, they don't get the TV time. And by the way, speaking of Republicans and Democrats, this leads me to the big story. As we all know, former President Donald Trump has been indicted for the fourth time. But now, just today, a deal was made for that he was going to turn himself in this upcoming Thursday. And also, he is to post a cash bond of $200,000. $200,000. In exchange, he cannot say anything remotely threatening the potential outcome of this upcoming case, where he and 18 other co-conspirators 18 other co-conspirators have been indicted on charges of attempting to obstruct and overturn a fair election. 18 other people. And the charges that are being brought are RICO charges because of the joint venture of 19 co-conspirators altogether. 19 meaning Donald Trump being the 19th person, with him being the president of the United States. And this $200 or this $200,000 bond, he can't make any threats to anybody or anyone concerning this indictment that could potentially go to trial. No threats towards the judge, no threats towards the grand jury, no threats towards the case, no threats or comments towards the other 18 co-conspirators, no threats or comments towards the prosecutors or any witnesses. And he is scheduled to be fingerprinted and have his mugshot, just like any other American citizen, which he is. He's not the president. He's a standard American civilian, if you will. He's like one of us. He may be an elite one of us, but nonetheless, he's no longer in political office. So he, as far as Georgia's laws are concerned, he has to follow Georgia law. And Georgia law states that you, when indicted, you are set to come in within, they have till this upcoming Friday, and he will be fingerprinted and have his mugshot taken. That will be forever. It'll be on record forever. And he also said that he's not going to be at the debates. Oh, yeah. Before I move forward, I'm going to show this. The people on Instagram won't be able to see this. Oh, the people on Instagram won't be able to see this, but the people on Facebook will.